paradox, though, is that the less you say, usually the better. Just your presence is so healing, so important. And what people who are grieving say all the time is that the worst thing that anybody could do is ignore me, is to not call, to not send a card, to not acknowledge me if you see me in the grocery store. We have a lot of, grocery stores can be very toxic places for people who are grieving. Oh, I could probably do a support group.
For the grocery stores. Or just go in the store.
It's so stressful. Right? It's sensory overload, first of all.
Well, you don't know whether, especially if it's been maybe several months after the person has died. You just don't know. Is it appropriate to bring it up, or is the person going to burst into tears in public?
Right.
You're trying not to upset somebody, but once again, it's this denial of,
but if you
something
pretend,
that's happened.
What I hear from people all the time, though, is when people pretend they don't see them,
well, that's,
and you know they did, and you see them scoot around to another aisle and dash out of the store, that's really hurtful. Really hurtful.
Yeah, that is a little.
Yeah. So you may think that you're getting away with it and that they didn't see you. But a better way to approach that would be to take a deep breath, muster up some courage, and just approach them and say, "Hey, good to see you. How you doing? I've been thinking about you."
Right.
Anytime you need to talk, if you're open to that. But acknowledge that they exist, acknowledge their presence.
Right.
There's nothing more isolating than to be grief-stricken, especially if you've lost a really, really significant person in your life. You feel alone, you feel like nobody understands you, you feel like life as you knew it was over. And then if you have people running from you, just imagine how awful that would feel. So saying the wrong thing is better than saying no thing. Right, but just acknowledge that they exist approach them and say hello without a pitiful attitude. Well, another thing that can be not well received is that, "Oh, how are you? I've been thinking about you. Oh, I don't know what I'd do if I were you." That's not help. That's happened, but and sometimes you can't help but feel that way when you hear of someone who perhaps tragically lost a child.
Your mind can't even go there. Really.
Yeah, it's hard. But again, take a deep breath, muster up some courage, and just approach the person and say, "Hi, I've been thinking about you. I'm really glad to see you. I'm here for you," or whatever is appropriate or is within the realm of possibility for you to say. But by all means, acknowledge that they exist and offer some kind of support, or just be there. Just be there. I heard a beautiful story about Keith Jones. He was a minister at First Church, and he has since passed on, but beautiful story. There was a family who was grieving a tragic death of one of their children, and he came to the home, and he said, "Do you mind if I just come in and sit?" And he sat there all night, didn't say anything. "I'll just be here with you." And the family never, ever forgot that. It was just the most beautiful thing, that he was able to sit in the tension of that kind of grief. And that's what people need. They need you to have the courage to withstand all of their pain.
It is kind of, I think I understand that, because there is sort of this energy of grief that surrounds you. And it's almost as if you can help absorb some of that. People sort of feel that support somehow, don't they, Karen?
Yes. So just to not be abandoned when you're grieving is tremendous.
Sometimes you just don't even need to say anything. Right.
And Keith Jones did it beautifully. He just was there. And it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. And Rabbi Harold Kushner, he wrote a book called When Bad Things Happen to Good People. Yes. And he's written several books, so they were all running through my head at the same time. And of course, he was a rabbi, and then he lost his son. And he realized that many of the things that he said before he had that loss, here he is a preacher, someone who's helping people who are grieving, he said, "I realized that so much of that was not helpful at all." And he realized that just having people be present to him and put out their hand and acknowledge their pain was what really mattered. So he advises people to just reach your hand out, say, I'm sorry, and then stop talking.
Yeah, because imagine, really, is there anything that you could say?
Right, right.
Right. It really is just that human contact that helps.
Absolutely.
A little bit
Yeah. Sometimes
at a time.
we feel compelled to say something that we think will help them to feel better, but often that's not going to work. You know? Some of the cliches, they're in a better place, and that may be true, but that also diminishes what's going on with the person who's grieving, and it invalidates that they're in pain.
So people really need to be allowed to process their grief.
They need to be allowed to feel sad. And
that's not always something that
we don't tolerate that very well in our
It's like cheer
our
up,
culture.
what's
Yeah.
going on already.
Yeah, and family members and friends, they want their old friend back. Yeah. Gee, you're not the same. You're not the way you were. And that's true for a while, but with support. And the paradox is, if you allow them to be sad, if you allow them to grieve, if you embrace that, then chances are that they will be able to get back on their feet quicker than if you're pushing them to be better before they're ready.
Right.
But we coach each other at the Resource Center that, yes, this is hard, and a lot of people feel guilty when they have a good day. So if you've lost your spouse or if you've lost a child in particular, those are the two categories where people seem to have the most difficulty feeling good about having a good day.
Right.
But then intellectually, if they can at least understand the concept that they deserve to be happy, then getting there will be a little bit easier when you have other people validating and saying, listen, feeling good doesn't diminish your loved one. It's not dishonoring them. In fact, so much good can be done when the grieving person is healthy. If you harness the energy and the passion that you had for that person, put it to good use, then beautiful things can happen.
And we have several examples of that in town.
Weathersfield is such a beautiful place for commemorating people who have passed on.
Right.
We have the Keeney Center, we have the Keene Memorial Sports Center, we have Mikey's Place, we have the Webb Dean Stevens Museums, we have the Ancient Burial Ground. It's really a place where there is so much tribute paid to people who have passed on. And how did that happen? Well, if the people who were grieving them just curled up in a ball and were so depressed that they were paralyzed, then none of that could have happened.
Right.
So if you take all that energy and put it to good use, then it can benefit everyone. So I use those examples. I talk a lot about alchemy. You take this horrible situation that has happened in your life, and how can you transform it into something that's going to be beautiful? And it can honor their legacy. And when we do things with intention to honor the people in our life who have had meaning and purpose for us, who have died, then that makes us feel close to them. That helps us to feel connected to them. And it makes a big difference in the course of our lives and in our grief.
It is. It's almost becomes a gift in a way for our own life, because it can enrich our own experience
Absolutely.
of our. And now you also have at the center, it's not just human beings. There are instances where people have lost a pet.
Yes.
And
Yes.
they maybe feel a little silly that, it was just their pet, but, it's a hurdle, and you have support for them too.
We don't have a group for people who've lost a pet, but we do have a whole row of books about pet loss, and one of the coloring books that I've done is about pet loss. And certainly I'm an animal lover, so if someone needs to talk about their dear departed pet, I'm all ears. Please don't hesitate to call if you need some support around that.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Now, I would like to talk a little bit more about the actual foundation, the Safe Place to Grieve Foundation, and that's funded in part by
the
the
DeSoto
Soto family,
Yes.
and also donation.
Yes, we do. There's no fee,
So
but we do request. We rely on donations as well. So if a person is able to make a donation, we're a 501c3. It is tax deductible. We have a golf tournament that's in the summer. It's always, we've been having it the last Friday in July at Lyman Orchards.
Oh, nice.
Had a great time. So, and we are looking for some other ideas for fundraising as well. We had a gold party about a year and a half ago.
A gold party?
Gold. People brought their old gold jewelry instead of going to good old Tom or something.
Okay.
We had a person who came and she waited, and the nice thing about that was you would get the same amount of money that you would get if you went to this person privately, but the foundation got 10% of the total take. So, and it was a fun afternoon.
Yeah.
We also had a craft party last year. There were crafters who came in and they set up tables at the resource center, and they paid to be there. So each crafter gave us $75 to have their table there. So that was another fun afternoon. And then one of the women who used to come to the support group works at Chico's in Glastonbury. And from time to time, they have a day where a percentage of their proceeds will go to a nonprofit.
So there's a lot of
So
different
there are a lot of
creative
different-
ways
yes,
to
yes.
support the center.
And if anybody has ideas,
Yeah, well, that's true. If
Please
anyone listening
give
has
me a
ideas,
call.
because truly I'm sitting here listening to you tonight, and it is really an amazing, I think, untapped resource for people.
yes.
Truly, you know, I think there's no greater time of need
Oh,
in someone's life.
I can't imagine anything harder to deal with than the loss
Just
from
the
death
even
of someone
getting
you
up
love.
out of bed in the
Oh,
morning,
sure.
and it's devastating.
Right, to motivate yourself to get up when you just don't want to face the day without them. It's tough. The symbol of the foundation is a dragonfly. This was
Okay.
a gift, a birthday gift from someone. And
Oh, I see here on your...
yes, we have dragonfly logos. Dragonflies are the symbol of immortality.
Oh, okay.
Now, Janet Klett had a girlfriend from nursing school who lost her husband at a young age. And she approached Janet and said, Janet, I need help. I don't know what to do. She had young children. So she and Janet combed bookstores. I think this loss probably happened maybe 25, 30-ish years ago. I'm not sure when. So at that time, there were very few books that were written on the subject. But Janet developed a lending library that she had at the funeral home. But of course, no one was wanting to go to the funeral home to use it.
Right.
But one of the first books that she found was this little booklet called Water Bugs and Dragonflies. Are you familiar with
No.
this story? Well, Janet thought it was a nice little booklet, so she bought it for the library. But the significance of the story didn't really hit her until her father had died. And we all look for signs that, where are you now? That's a real common topic of discussion at the
Is it
support
really?
group. Okay, we're with the person for a long time. We have this really strong attachment. And then all of a sudden, they're
Where
not
they go.
here.
Right.
Where are you? Where are you now? And could you give me a sign that you're okay? And there are all kinds of mysteries to the universe. Well, this is a beautiful little story about a colony of water bugs that, of course, are under the surface of the water. And every now and then, one of them climbs up a reed and finds himself on the other side of the water. And then they disappear, and they never see them again. So they're wondering, what's so great up there that every now and then one of us disappears, never to be seen again? So they make a pact that the next one to cross over will come back down and tell them what's so great up there. So one day, one of the water bugs isn't really paying much attention to what he's doing, and he climbs up the reed, and he finds himself on the other side of the water. And it's a beautiful sunny day, and the clouds are poofy, and the sky is blue. And he said, oh, this is beautiful. Oh, wow, no wonder nobody wants to go back in that water. And the sun dries out his back, and he sprouts these beautiful, glistening dragonfly wings. And then the wind picks up, and he finds himself flying and soaring through the air, and he's just having the time of his life. And he says, oh, I don't want to go back in that muddy water. But a promise is a promise. I promised my friends that I would go back and tell them what's so great up here. So he gets back to the surface of the water, and he sees his reflection. He said, is that me? He doesn't recognize himself. And he tries to get back in, but he can't. And he tries, and he tries, and he tries. Can't get back into the water. And he sees his friends below, and he tries to get their attention. He's splashing, splashing. Guys, it's me, it's me. But they're ignoring him. They don't recognize him because he's in a different form. And then all of a sudden, he gets it. Oh, so that's why we haven't heard from our friends. Once you cross over, you can't go back down and be the way you were. And maybe we were getting signals that we didn't recognize because they're not in the form that we're expecting or that we're used to. So that's